5 weeks in a row talking about audio tools. This week is week 3 of 5, and we're talking about de-essers. What is a de-esser? How do you use it? And why would you use it? Welcome back to week 3 of my audio course. I'm really excited that each and every one of you have tuned in. This channel, I talk about gear and audio and filmmaking and all things creativity. So if you're interested in any of that, please consider subscribing to the channel. You'd be joining a family and a movement, and we can all hand in hand move towards greatness together. So hop on board. Okay, so de-esser, I am so excited for this one because it is going to utilize the compressor course that we first covered 2 weeks ago and the EQ course from last week. They're coming together today in a de-esser. So what does a de-esser do? It is a dynamics processor that acts on a certain level of frequency. So it's a dynamics processor like a compressor where it messes with the dynamics, aka the amplitudes, but it only messes with them or changes them on a set of frequency bands that you designate. So does that make sense? Hit like if that makes sense. It's like a compressor that only compresses on certain frequency bands. Got it? Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. So before we get too far into how to use it, let's talk about why you use a de-esser. Well, the reason you use a de-esser is because it acts on only the amplitude of the frequencies of sibilance, the sibilant frequencies, which are the frequencies of the S sounds and the T sounds and the F sounds. Those are usually between 5 and 10,000 hertz on the frequency spectrum. When the human voice is recorded, sometimes those sounds can pop out more than other sounds, especially after compression. And if you go with a particularly aggressive compressor, there tends to be some collateral damage from over-compression of the sibilant frequencies popping out, being much more noticeable. When you compress, don't forget to de-ess. If you use a compressor, don't forget your de-esser. When you're using compression, use de-essing. Sorry, I'm getting out of control. So you can use it with or without a compressor because sibilant frequencies can be problematic based on the microphone you're using or the room you're in or the person's voice. You use it to bring down the sibilant frequencies. That's why you use a de-esser. So real quick, we're gonna look at the Fabfilter Pro-Q, which has a really good analyzer on it, and just analyze the frequencies that are being triggered when I make a snake sound. Literally, literally go. Okay, and now I'm gonna switch from the S sound to the F sound. You can just watch it change. Okay, you get the point? Are we beating dead horses here? I love it. I just love the de-esser, man. It's one of my favorite plugins, along with all the other plugins. They're all my favorite plugins. So then moving into how do you use it? Like the past 2 courses, we're gonna talk about the only parameters you need to be aware of, and in this case, there's 2, only 2, threshold and EQ. Threshold and center frequency in many cases. Threshold and bandwidth. I'm not sure. Across the board, de-essers call this different things, but essentially that second parameter is going to be where are the frequencies you're trying to compress. So the first one is the threshold, exactly like a compressor. Remember when we did that really crude drawing of the water going across the page? The threshold being that dotted line of when that compressor turned on. Exact same thing with the de-esser. You set that threshold at a level at which when the water goes up above that threshold, it turns on the de-esser. Just the exact same as a compressor. The only difference is it only turns on the compressor at that level of frequencies that you designate. You can designate the center frequency, you can designate the bandwidth, you can designate the Q and all of that. And basically there's a bell curve. It's a couple thousand hertz wide. And if you go into Premiere Pro, you can look at the stock plugin there. That one is really clear. It shows you exactly how wide your frequency bands are and at the level of which you want to compress. Now there is an option in the Premiere Pro de-esser between multiband and broadband. Broadband just sounds like a compressor to me. It doesn't feel like it's actually compressing on the sibilant frequency, so select multiband when you're on that one. So, set that threshold, just like the compressor. Then you would designate your EQ or center frequency based on where you hear or see on an analyzer where the sibilant frequencies are problematic. So again, men tend to be lower than women, but many times that can be across the board. You gotta check it out for yourself until your ear learns, because remember, your ear is the most important. It's to the point now when I compress male vocals, I understand between 5 and 8,000, I can really hear the difference, and I don't really need the analyzer as much as I used to. So here's a couple quick examples of pre and post de-essing just based on my voice right now, and I'm gonna be a little bit dramatic with my S's. So here's the pre with the S's pretty dramatic. We're singing a sappy song about S's and trying to find out where the de-esser's not gonna work and where it is gonna work. Same thing, run that tape back, exactly same clip with the de-esser engaged at a really aggressive threshold to make a point. With the S's pretty dramatic, we're singing a sappy song about S's and trying to find out where the de-esser's not gonna work and where it is gonna work. With the S's pretty dramatic, we're singing a sappy song about S's. With the S's pretty dramatic, we're singing a sappy song about S's. With the S's pretty dramatic, we're singing a sappy song about S's. The S's pretty dramatic, we're singing a sappy song about S's. So that's it, the de-esser. Now, let's talk about our signal change. So far, we're processing dialogue. Week 1 was compression. Week 2 was EQ. Week 3 is a de-esser. And we're moving forward, y'all. One step at a time, 1 week at a time. Oliver's Christmas audio course, week 3, 2 weeks to go. Next week, we're talking about a gate. A gate is a fun one. You don't want to miss that. Let me know your thoughts. Have you ever used these before? Are you confused by anything? Do you have any questions? If you have any questions like that, please feel free to comment below. You know how I always love to interact with keyboards. Or follow me on Twitter at Oliver J. Hughes. That's where I would love to interact with you guys outside of YouTube, talking about gear, music, creativity, life, all of it over on Twitter. That's why I want to do that. Subscribe to the channel if you really enjoyed this, and I'm going to be posting 2 more videos in the audio course, and then of course back to our regularly scheduled vlogs, which cover everything and anything and everything. All that being said, I'll see you next week.